So I was asked a question about professional indemnity insurance. And the question is, what's required in terms of qualifications? And that's up to the underwriter, the insurer. So you could get professional indemnity and be a certificate 2 consultant or arborist, a certificate 3, certificate 4. If you're giving advice, if you're saying to somebody as a Cert 3 arborist, I think we should prune this tree, you're actually giving them advice. Now, my screen's lagging, Peter.
You're very washed out picture as well.
Yeah, I can deal with that. Just not sure what's happening with the screen.
Yeah, the screen's
horrible.
Yeah, it seems like the computer slowness is affecting this as well.
Yeah. Let me just try disconnect and reconnect. I'll stay on the voice, but I'll just take.
You should get rid of all those PCs, Mark.
Yeah.
Get a proper
computer. It's still lagging, and I've got good speed. I can see all of you, but for some reason the video is not working right. Well, you don't need to see me anyhow, guys. So it's probably a blessing.
It's not much you need to share a screen.
Yeah, well, hopefully that won't be fast-moving stuff, although some of it will be.
You look better like that, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't know what to do to. Well, I mean, you're coming across well. Just for some reason, my screen is not.
If it bothers you, turn the camera off.
I will turn the camera off, and turning it on and off might actually solve the problem. So we'll see how that goes. So yes, I mean, if you're giving advice, theoretically, you should be covered against the advice you give. There's something even more interesting when it comes to professional indemnity, and this is something that we often don't think about, and that is when a friend asks me, well, how's my tree? And I'm just doing them a favor. I'm doing it as a freebie. And in fact, I did one recently. I was up at Harvey Bay, and a friend said to me, look, is it possible that you could have a look at my son's tree whilst you're here? He's just a bit concerned. I'm doing it as a freebie. Do I need professional indemnity insurance? Where do I stand on it? What do you think?
I think you would.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, even if you're not getting paid for it, you still are exposed. So my policy for that, and it's something to worthwhile thinking about, my policy is I will always still provide written notes. So I did the inspection for the friend. I didn't charge, but I still followed it up with a normal report, just as if I had inspected it.
So email to that person.
Sorry, what was that, Rob?
Email to the person concerned.
Yeah. Email to the person concerned saying, "Hey, Daniel, see your notes from the inspection," and that's exactly what I did. Gave him it just as though he had paid. Because I'm still exposed, I want to make sure there's a record. Record keeping particularly at a professional level, at a Cert 5 level or a diploma level or above, we're providing advice. We ought to behave like a professional. I go see a doctor, same deal applies. And in fact, there can be an argument that there's a commercial nexus. That is, I did it because I want, a favor from my friend. I want my friend to like me, those sort of things. So it's still seen as being a commercial type relationship. So you don't get away from it just because they're a friend. I think that's interesting. And it's also,
would you take pictures and all that sort of jazz as well?
I took pictures, just handled it like a normal inspection. For me, that's all that it is. Which raises another interesting question, seeing as you asked it, is this issue of pictures. Somebody said recently, well, look, a tree branch fell in a school, and the question was asked, well, how do we know you inspected that tree? And I'm not sure that you have to photograph absolutely everything with, crazy detail, but photographs are a really great way of just showing that you've actually done things, that you've looked at things and you've seen things. Yeah, maybe you didn't think about that particular branch, but, was there anything about that particular branch that was an issue? And I inspect every tree, which is why I find weird and wonderful things in trees. I wonder how many of the trees that I've inspected, I found things that another arborist hasn't found previously, and vice versa. They're going to be things that I don't see, that you're going to still be limited on in terms of time. We're obviously not going to go up and do a great big aerial inspection of every tree, because we'd go broke. Does that make some form of sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's
So I sort of asked that question because I was trying to get my professional indemnity insurance, and they said I haven't got enough experience, which is now, I've been in the ARB industry for 3 years, and I recently finished my diploma, and I was just thinking, is that reasonable to not be able to get the professional indemnity insurance with that experience?
I would try another insurer.
Yeah, I got insurance straight away as soon as I graduated.
Yeah.
And there are arborists out there with a Cert 3. So, there may be more restrictions, there may be a bigger excess, but you should have no troubles getting it. And you might like to reach out to Vicky and just find out who she approached, or Vicky, you might like to share that. It's up to you. But
so
yeah,
the insurer or the broker I was talking to is Tudor, which is sort of connected with Australia.
Yeah, I tried that too, but I'll look it up and tell you who I've used.
Yeah. Thank
You
you.
could try Fitzpatrick's.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're sort of with Australia as well, are they?
yeah, they do a lot of the consultants in the industry as well. So there are a number of companies out there. Again, if you've got a qualification, you've got a diploma, then we've actually got a process in our educational system, and it shows you that some people are dubious about the educational system, but theoretically you've all come out as competent.
Yeah.
Competent means that you're competent. I'm not sure that we train that well for that. I think we are putting you out there as working towards competence, but still not there. And I think that, that's probably something that has caused some concerns.
Yeah, I guess the course could be double the length, really, to give you some more information.
Yeah, that's right. I think so. I think we the system of privatizing education has resulted in competition, and that's resulted in all the RTOs trying to do it as quickly as possible in as short a time as possible. And I'm not sure that that's achieved the results that we want. And then the same thing goes, University of Melbourne, great qualification, worthwhile going and doing it. I support it, but it covers 4 subjects. It doesn't give you sufficient education to deal with the things that we're being asked to deal with, and therefore, we are exposed again. And that, look, it's always difficult. I don't think we're dealing with typically, probably on a regular basis, maybe 500 to 1,000 species of trees, by regular basis, at least annually. That's a fair few trees. Compare that with veterinary scientists, he might be dealing with, maybe 200 or 300. And then compare that with the doctor, he's dealing with one organism. Well, not one host, lots of other organisms. So we've got Buckley's chance of knowing a lot of things as a result. So it's difficult.
Nils, I used Midland Insurance.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I tried Tudor. They were more expensive actually, but
Yeah. Right.
I've used Midland for a number of years now.
Yeah. I'll have to try to shop around a bit. I thought it'd be easier since I have my my other insurance there, but I might have to shop around.
Yeah, look, it seems like they're a little bit odd in their approach, but you're in Victoria, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, look, Victoria had that massive class action, which is also a concern. So a tree fell on some wires, caused a fire, and it was a $500 million settlement.
Is this the Black Saturday fires in
Yeah, and
09 or whatever it was? Yeah.
that's again something that leaves people feeling a little uncomfortable, and it certainly has driven a lot more legal activity around storm damage and those sort of things. So is a little bit more difficult.
If they were sort of concerned about people's knowledge, I'd get that. But I know other people that have been able to get that insurance, and they don't even have a Cert 3 or a diploma. They've just been in the industry for
You're right,
10 years maybe or something.
and I think I've talked about this before, and we've seen it. We've seen examples of it. There are arborists out there with a diploma who are patently wrong about things. But if you're patently wrong and you have no trees and you get rid of every tree, you're pretty well safe. It reminds me very much of a wonderful comment by an expert in a court case that said he knew the tree was dangerous because when he was cutting it down, it was breaking in an unusual manner. And I think about that, and I think about witches, and I think, yep, we just threw them into the Thames, and if they floated, they were witches, and if they drowned, they weren't.
Yeah, that's the same sort of system, isn't it?
Yeah, cut down the tree. If it breaks strangely, then it must be a bad tree. Of course.
Look, I told you there was rot in the middle.
Yeah, but I'm thinking how many times there isn't rot in the middle.
Yep.
I've heard about some reports coming out of South Australia by consultants who found a tree to have suicidal tendencies.
Yeah, okay. I think
a bit of a statement.
So opinions like that are being insured, and I'll share another one that gives you an idea of what gets covered by insurance. I got called up to ask and asked whether I could give a price of transplanting a palm tree into a site and removing the existing one. I got there, and somebody had gone up and spiked the palm, which annoys me, and started cutting off the fronds, and realised that they weren't meant to cut the tree down; they were meant to prune it. And they were too stoned at the time, according to the client, to recall. So they had just, a little spear at the end, but the palm certainly wasn't going to die. And the person said, "Look, I'm getting my property photographed. It's an expensive waterfront property. I need to have it replaced." And I think we worked out the replacement cost was about 16 or 17,000 for a cocos palm. It was just ridiculous. But we went through the process and gave the person a cost for that. And like I said to him, if it's just the photographs, you can have them photoshopped any day. Every photographer can go through that process and make the palm that's got no top on it have a full head. You just Photoshop another one back in. Well, the insured ended up getting a payout, and so the person ended up getting their $16,000 or $18,000 bonus, essentially cash, and never did the transplant. And yet the person that screwed up like that still got insurance, and probably got insurance the following year. And I think we've all come across people that have done things like damaged property, for example, doing tree work. And certainly I did on one occasion. I had a claim, I think, for $2,000 or $3,000 on one event. So, they still insure you. And we don't seem to have this change in the amount. So maybe the way to do it would be to increase your premiums and then over time start to decrease them. Who knows? We'll see. I think the risk from arborists giving advice about trees is fairly small. Are we going to get tree parts fail? Yep. Are trees going to die? Yep. Those sort of things are going to happen. But I think overall our exposure is incredibly small. So good question. Any other questions you have?
That was it for me. That was a really good answer. Thank you.
Okay. I've got to try and check this video problem out, and if I can't resolve it, we'll make things difficult.
While you
Yeah,
fiddle
go
with
for
it,
it,
can
Rob.
I ask another one? I missed one of the sessions a while ago, and I caught up later on, and there was a discussion about ivermectin.
Go on.
And I wondered what products are available with ivermectin as the active ingredient, because I've been looking for something different from Confidor.
Yeah, look, my big complaint about diagnosing diseases in general and insect diseases in particular is that labels are a pain in the neck. Now, those of you who are on the southern side of the border, Victorians get it a lot easier. But for example, I like imidacloprid or Confidor based that group of chemicals, the neonicotinoids. But in their wisdom, Bunnings decided not to stock Confidor. Bayer decided to withdraw it as a product that they were going to sell. This you can still buy the equivalent. Sells, for example, sells a metacloprid-based concentrate for household gardeners. But there are lots of things out there that work, and they're in groups. So let's just talk about them in groups, Rob. For most things that we deal with, we want something that's systemic.
Yeah.
So we get the pyrethroids or the artificial pyrethrums. And they're good chemicals, low toxicity, usually an LD50 of 2000 or higher. Imidacloprid or the neonicotinoids fit into the same group, and some of the newer neonicotinoids are a little bit more specific, so they've done a little bit better job of trying to reduce the problems associated with them. The next type that we have are the spinicides, and then the bacterial type ones like ivermectin. So, we've got this reasonable group of low toxicity chemicals. We still have in the market there some horrors. We still have some of the OCs and OPs, organophosphates and organochlorides out there. So the first thing I want to do when I'm looking for a product is I want to know that it's something that a householder in general can use. And there's two advantages to the household of being able to use it. First of all, the householders can treat if they can, and that's something that I like to see. Second of all, if it's in a higher use area, let's say it's in a school and I want to treat those, Bunnings over-the-counter chemicals are a lot easier to get away with applying without anyone having any issues, because we've got these incredibly big LD50s, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. So, anything that's 2,000 or bigger is an LD50. So the bigger the number gets on an LD50, the lower the toxicity. And so anything that's less than 2,000 is probably we don't need to be using it now, because we've got enough variables out there. And ivermectin is used. It's used as an injectable. Morge, for example, in the US, use it as an injectable. But yeah, look, if you can't find anything on it, Rob, you might drop Peter an email and I can go have a hunt around and find your paper. But there are papers out there that give you application rates. You just got to get better at searching or getting artificial intelligence to search for you, and we did one. And it really does a good job. But again, you know, if you asked, and let's try it. I'll just, whilst I'm talking to you, I'll just try one. GP chat. Chat GTP, GPT. Wrong one. Back one. Log in. So I'm just going to say, now let me get the correct spelling. Yep, I got the right spelling. So can I use ivermectin as a tree injectable? Provide URLs. Yes, ivermectin can be used as a tree injectable, it says, for controlling pests such as borers, leaf miners, and other insects. University of Florida has a thing on it, Penn State Extension has a thing on it, and University of Georgia has a thing on it. So there we are. Achievable. Let me share that with you, just so you see that it's achievable. I think just got to find the right Chat GPT. Oh, there it is. So the screen, hopefully you can see that. I can't see what you can see now. Is that come up?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've done that very quickly. I could ask a lot more questions, Rob, like, you know, what's the application rate? So let's try that. What is the application rate for ivermectin as a tree injectable? So somewhere between 0.1 and 1 of the product as an application. Again, it's not giving you all the answers. You'll have to go and do some more work to find that. Again, if I ask the same question, copy. And again, there's a lot more work. You can get a lot better at doing questions for this. Write as if you are a tree expert. Provide references. Provide citations, I think I should have asked. There we are.
Wow.
I'll leave that up on the screen. And so, again, if you want to start using some of this technology, it's worthwhile. There are lots of video instructions starting to come out on how to get better results out of it. But there's just some for you. The other thing I'd look at, as I said, is ivermectin, and you are a Google Scholar. So go to Google Scholar and start searching ivermectin tree injection, and you should find something on that.
Yep. Thanks, Mark. That's great.
And again, it's one of the real pains of diagnosing tree diseases is that you spend more work researching it than you'll ever be able to bill for. I did one the other day, and I'm just trying to think. Oh, is wax scale on some lily pillies that are in a hedge in a courtyard. So in a courtyard, wind doesn't come round, so the kids don't launch. They all stay at home. You end up with massive outbreak populations very rapidly. And I probably spent half an hour to an hour to find a range of chemicals that were available and usable in New South Wales by a general assistant in the school grounds. You know, ridiculous, because I know that the chemicals work, but I've got to find a chemical that's approved on the label. And the approval on the label doesn't necessarily have to say for wax scale on lily pillies in school grounds, but it has to say something to the extent of sap-sucking insects on ornamentals, for example. That would cover it. And again, I got frustrated after the first 15 minutes or so and just went to ChatGPT and said, okay, where can we go from here? So I think we'll find ourselves using more and more of this sort of technology as we go on, just because trying to pinpoint these things is difficult. So no other questions? Right. I'd like to just go back to something that we talked about earlier on. I just want to make the opportunity to make things a little clearer. And I'll open up a report and I'll share it with you. I've just got to put some images in. And what I wanted to talk about is the fact that, well, you guys will tell me, the purpose of a report is what?
Communication.
Yeah. So it's communication is number one priority. And I got a report back the other day and I looked at it and I thought, wow, that person hasn't realized that communication is the primary component of what you're doing. And in this particular case, the primary component meant, in my mind, altering the images and sharing screen. Here it is, present. Now, Peter, I apologize. Your software does this in a completely different way, but the concept remains the same. Windows and okay, and share. So I've got some pictures to put in, and for all the horrors, and I apologize for all the horrors, I start off with a format. I've gone from 6 images to a page, to 2 images a page, and every now and again 1 image per page. Most of my photographs are taken already in landscape, so if I'm out taking photographs, I don't think about it in any other format but landscape if I can, because it's easy to fit 2 images in landscape on a plan. And at this size, you can generally show most things. Now, I can't see your screen, but is that relatively clear on your screen?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, great. So I'm going to add in a photo, and I'm going to go to my photos and find a picture. I'm not sharing the whole thing, so you'll just be seeing the straight screen and the photo come in. And okay, if I just look at number 1, just trying to find number 1 shot. I'll go to number 2 shot if I have to. Oh no, there's number 1. Okay. Copy. And a lot of us are out there taking photographs and we don't have any control over when we're going to do it. So there's my shot. That is just a dark tree. And there are two ways that you can adjust this. You can go to picture format. Now in Peter's system, you'll edit it, and you've got a lot more options when you're using something like a Photoshop or a editing software like Peter's using to do a lot more things. But the basics here are worthwhile knowing. There's some presets in Word that allow you to do bits and pieces, and there are presets in the software that Peter's using as well. Peter, can you remind us again the name of the software that you're using?
I use, what do I use?
Photoshop's a standard one, but it's about 10 times more expensive than what Peter's using. And
Do you use Affinity? Affinity?
Affinity,
yeah. There's a Photoshop program for Affinity, but I do most of my stuff in Designer.
Okay.
But you probably would need to use the Photoshop program to do those adjustments to the image.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of adjustments, I'm just going to use picture corrections, which is a more detailed option. It gives me bits, and it tells me the contrast has been pushed 20 and the brightness pushed 20%, but contrast is probably not needed in this instance. So I'm going to drop that back to close to 0, and I'm going to go up to maybe 30%. 30, I'm almost at 40. When I go to 40, I'm starting to lose some details, so I'm going to increase the sharpness. And I've probably gone a little bit too much but now I can start seeing things. It's a little bit brighter. It's not perfect. I might want to even adjust the color saturation depending on the color time of the day to make the colors stand out a little bit more. And now I can see a dead branch in there a little bit easier. It's not ideal again. And sometimes you want to adjust the temperature depending on what you're getting as a background. So you can see that there's a big change in that. If I look at the same image again, I just want to show something on the trunk. Oops, silly boy, pasting, not swapping, change picture from clipboard. So if I just want to do something, I can crop now. When we're cropping an image, always keep your aspect ratios constant. So that is a constant aspect ratio. A change in the aspect ratio would be when I'll show it to you and show why we don't want to do it, is if we were to do and just pull down an edge. And we're going to distort the image. I don't know whether you can see that. Let me go back out. But now
you
make it long and skinny, which is not what we want at all. So be very careful. Always keep your ratios the same. If you've got a setting on your software that allows it to change ratios, switch that off. I've got to go backwards too. Okay, that's the one. So when I adjust the aspect ratio is set, I'm not able to change it. So that means it always keeps the same proportionality. So it never gets stretched. Now here, we could probably push things a little bit more. We've taken away the bright skylight. So here we want to get a lot more color in to see our trunk. And whilst I might wash out the background, if I'm wanting to talk about the trunk, it's the trunk that matters. Yes, it's not a perfect shot. Yes, in a real world, I would have had a flash on here or a studio light, and that would have made all the difference. The background wouldn't look so washed out. But what's the purpose of the image in the report?
Well, communication.
Yeah, to communicate. So I've washed out the background, but if we're talking about the trunk, that trunk is a lot more visible now. That's probably getting too far over the top. If I increase the sharpness a little bit, it'll help. But that looks, in my mind, a lot easier. If I want to talk about, a a bulge here or something there, or something at the base, and we're talking about the trunk compared with that. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, a huge difference. So it's not that you're suggesting that you haven't changed it, but if your purpose of your photograph is to show a general item in communicating, then that's fine. If you wanted to show the color of that trunk, you would need to go in with a color scale and color match. And I'm not going to go into how that's done in terms of photography and the like, but again, you'd want to have used a flash or some studio lighting to light up this trunk. Otherwise, you're taking it from the wrong angle. You'd want to come in from the other side. But of course, if our fault's on this side, that's what we've got. And for a lot of us that are out there taking images, we can't control whether clouds, for example, clouds just make the world miserable for taking photographs. But so does high sunlight. If you're taking high sunlight and you want to take a picture in the shade, just as this is low sunlight. This is a cloudy afternoon, 5 o'clock in an afternoon. And the only way I can get this without a flash is to expose the background. And one of the problems with using a flash, particularly during a really sunny day, is you need a lot of flash power because these are big objects still. So accepting that your photographs may not always be perfect, but that doesn't matter as long as the part you're communicating about is clear, then that's what's important.
Do you have to write in your report that the photos have been altered, or you can just load it?
By all means you could, but have you been altered? Have I altered to try and conceal anything?
No.
Or falsify, make something appear to be the case that's not the case? No, here all I've done is made some changes to make it easier to see. Let me find you another one. And I've got, and this is an unusual thing to find in a tree. This is a copy. This is part of a cupboard door failure.
Did you say cupboard door?
Yeah, cupboard door failure, whatever that is. Matic talks about a cupboard door failure. That's something that's got the junction failing from one side. And that would normally be a codominant stem with a lateral branch that's pushed in the wind and it rotates and it splits one side, but not the other side. So it's actually got a hinge on one side. So again, it's probably not as clear as we want. We might want to make that clearer. And so again, we're going to go through that same process. What happens if I brighten it up a little bit? Now I can see the crack a little bit easier. But it's starting to wash out now. And that's where sharpness comes in if you're using Word. But just hitting sharpness, it adjusts the pixels around images. It figures out artificially what it's got to do. And so now that crack is becoming even more obvious. Okay. Contrast, I can make it disappear one way and I can make it wash out the other way. So in terms of contrast here, maybe 10% increase in contrast. Saturation, just to make the leaves look a little bit greener, but now I've gone too red. Those colors are there. It's just that it's overemphasizing it by by 35% or 20%. But can you see the crack now?
Yep.
And so again, another comment is don't include an image and expect your reader to understand it. You've got to tell them something about it. So the arrow points to a crack in the junction. That is a potential cupboard door failure. The lateral branch, under wind loading, the lateral branch may fail, something like that. If you just put cupboard door failure in an arrow, they're none the wiser. And the last thing that I'll do on this, and then again, I'll answer any questions and have a nice quick early one if there are no questions. who's the person, if I'm writing a school risk assessment report, who are the people, who are the different audiences that will be reading this report?
For mine, it'll be the school principal, plus if there's work to be done, the contractor who's doing the work.
The principal and the contractor, great. I think that's an excellent answer, Rob. Occasionally, somebody who's controlling the money, a bank counter might be involved in a school, or a big institution might have a bursar that's involved to make decisions. And some of them may even have a risk party involved. And I think they're all great things. But that's a complex report again. When the arborist is reading things, he realizes he's got to do some things. We might, for example, recommend some tip reduction on this lateral limb. If I write that up the top and say, do some tip reduction, that's fine. That's a perfectly good thing to do. But now the arborist has to go down and then look at the image and then go back up the top again and go back down. So again, I will tend to summarize the recommendations for the arborist with the image. So when he's looking at the tree, he's out on site and he's got the image open and he's looking at it saying, oh, yep, that's the right tree. He knows now automatically, because it'll have, move dead branches greater than 10 centimeters, reduce load on lateral limb with crack, something like that, whatever it might be. Having that there at that spot makes life easier for him. It means that he's less likely to mix things up. And I think we've all heard the story, and then Vicky, you may not, and Niels, you may not either, but the rest of us have, of the arborist that's gone out to do a job and removed the wrong tree just because things got confusing. Has everyone heard that sort of story?
Mm-hmm.
No?
No.
Stop that from happening, because the arborist wouldn't read the report the right way. No,
Yeah,
so
look,
you're talking about needs to be clear.
yeah, that's right. And look, the arborist doesn't have to, I mean, I can share from my own experience. I had a site where I had a crew out, and one of the guys was English, and he called me up and said, what does a pawpaw look like? And I said, it's got this wonderful palmate looking leaf. And the other tree that you're concerned with doing stuff there is a Nyssa sylvatica, and it's just got a single broad lanceolate leaf. And he was so enamored with the pawpaw that he cut down the Nyssa and left the pawpaw as the other process. He just, in the moment, got confused. It happens. So, what we want to try and do is reduce that confusion for them as well. And so my suggestion is, just a brief summary. If you're specifying work on a tree, put a brief summary in the end bit as well. So any questions from today, or any other questions? Then I've got one other piece of news to share with you, and we're done for the day. No other questions? Right. Some of you who are doing risk will have come across QTRA. I think probably most of you at some stage. Has everyone come across it?
Yep.
Yep. Has everyone done the training?
Yep.
No, not QTRA.
Okay. It's interesting. People that deal with numbers like it. People that aren't numbers people tend to find it sometimes a little bit frustrating. But I was on the phone to Mike Ellison yesterday, and he advised me about a new standard that's come out, and I think it's a wonderful thing. It's ISO 4980-2023, and I'll just share the screen so you can see it. I'll show you just a draft, a introduction to it. To get there, I've got to go to share. Yep, here it is.
I'm actually coming up to Sydney to do the course next Tuesday, Wednesday.
Right, yeah, you talked about that.
I was back and forwards for a bit, but I ended up booking all the stuff. So.
Yeah, look, I think you'll be at some areas. There's some nice trees in that one. Unfortunately, the council's done some work on them recently, so they're not quite as nice as they used to be, but there's still some nice trees. This standard is called, interestingly, the Benefit Risk Assessment for Sport and Recreation Facilities, Activities and Equipment. And it looks at benefits and risk, not risk alone. And I think, and so assessments of benefits and risk, quantitative and qualitative analysis and scales, benefit assessments, risk assessments. So they actually say start with a benefit assessment first before you start with a risk assessment. And that's a really interesting concept when you think about it, isn't it?
That's very good. The benefits get forgotten pretty easily.
Yes, and there is a YouTube video, you can go look at it, that Professor David Ball speaks at the release of it. I think it's about an hour and 30 minutes worth of video. Talks about these things, and David has been really playing on tree stuff. So some of his most quotable things are, for example, trying to reduce the risk associated with trees by going out and looking at them is like looking for a minuscule needle in a gigantuum haystack. It's just grossly disproportionate. And most of what we do as arborists, as horrible as it is over the top. Most of what we do in terms of pruning and treatment of trees is over the top as well. Not all of it, but probably at least 50% of what gets done is probably stuff that doesn't need to be done. Even when it comes to some of those weird things like the outbreaks that we get, oftentimes even outbreaks will tend to settle themselves down because there can be some collateral damage in the meantime. I think it's great to see, something that's talking about, for example, the comparison of benefits and risks. How do you weigh them and how do you consider them? And that's where quantitative assessment or using numbers really comes in. The benefits of a tree are, I don't know, let's say, for Sydney, Melbourne, much the same, about $11 a square metre of canopy for in the suburbs. We might have an $800 a year benefit out of a tree that's posing a $500 a year risk. That means there's a net benefit to not removing the tree rather than removing the tree, even though the tree might have some significant problems. So I think it's nice to finally see it come out as an international standard. It's obviously not going to apply to every situation, but the concepts apply everywhere. And that is, we really should be weighing up. And I did some calculations in a paper a while back, and I think Peter might have had it at one stage on Kondo et al.'s work in Philadelphia. But in many cases, if the tree is healthy, in almost all cases, the tree is healthy and it's got problems, unless it's rocking in the ground, unless it's got imminent failure, the bigger risk will be in most cases removing the tree rather than the risk from the tree. So we'll do more harm than good by removing the tree. And that's been one of the real disappointments that we've seen in terms of arboriculture generally. There's been historically this inclination to want to try and get rid of trees. And Jessica Marfa said the other day, cutting trees down is just killing business. We should be encouraging trees to be retained rather than the other way around. So,
but if you're a tree surgeon, you only get paid for chopping the trees. It's not easy to get paid for doing those other beneficial management practices like watering and mulching and so forth.
That's absolutely true, Peter. But again, and it's been one of my bugbears. So you know what's happened. I've gone from doing the same schools for the last decade, mostly just as repeat clients, to picking up a whole pile of new ones and losing some of those old ones as the department's done a reshuffle. And I am absolutely horrified about the quality of tree work that gets done in schools in general. There's some great work done, but I've seen enough logging, enough use of spikes in the last 3 months just to make me, I can't help it. I just get angry about it. I think, who took a 1.2 meter diameter forest red gum and decided to reduce it to a lollipop tree? And why do they use spikes? And, why do they use spikes? Just to do pruning work. I've seen it repeatedly. So I think just to deal with that, big branches, big limbs cut off because there's a cavity. Now, I get why cavities cause people anxiety and anguish, even though it shouldn't. But why cut half the tree off in one go? Why not cut it in stages? This particular one I'm thinking of probably is 400 mils in diameter. I probably would have done that over 4 or 5 visits, reduced, and then finally removed. It just doesn't all need to be at once. And I think that's one of the things that is fascinating. You might have heard of a profession called dentistry. Dentistry was about pulling teeth, putting in decay, filling cavities, and those sort of things. Dentistry is largely going to preventative dentistry and has done over the last 40 or 50 years. And the boroculture really needs to change from the mindset of we need to keep on doing everything to trying to figure out what the right things are. And I know the standard for pruning is going to, at some stage, if it hasn't already, include environmental pruning, or there'll be a co-standard environmental pruning. It includes things like fracture pruning. And, again, any of you who have tried breaking off a dead branch realize that oftentimes they're a lot stronger and a lot less likely to break than we give credit for. And a colleague of mine here in Sydney, Sean Talent, looks after a dead tree that's moved from Victoria to Sydney, to the western suburbs. And Niels, when you're up here, it's up near St Mary's Leagues Club, right beside it. It's on their grounds, worthwhile going and having a look at. But
cool. It's going to do a few visits to have a look at some trees while I'm up there.
Yeah, look, it's well and truly accessible whilst you're up there. It's only about 5-10 minutes from where the courses run.
Yeah.
So, and Sean said to me, "Look, Mark, I'm really concerned. I don't know how strong these are, and the tree's dead. It's been dead for a while, and it's artificially kept up. It's on a whole mechanical setup. It was a part of an old ropes course, and the ropes course has been pulled down, but they want to keep the tree." And I said to Sean last time, well, one of the easiest way to do it is to just throw a line over it and then just put a load cell on, test to 100 kilograms and see what happens. And Sean said, I was amazed. I was on some stuff, there was only maybe 25 to 50 mils in diameter, and I had 100 kilos on this long lever because I'm out towards the end of it, and I'm thinking something's going to break. And he said, I couldn't break anything. And I think, again, we have this perception that those bigger bits fail rapidly, and they tend not to in most cases. Any other questions, guys, before we call it a night? We've been at it for just under an hour. I apologize that it's short, but it is a short night and I can't get the screen working right. So,
thanks very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks for that. That was very
my
good.
pleasure, guys.
Bye.
Niels.
Yeah.
When you're up, catch up with us anyhow.
Yeah. I'll come up Monday.
Yeah.
Probably morning.
Do you